Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. Welcome to our Fireside Chat. I'm Christy White, President and CEO of Absolute, and joining me here today is our internationally recognized cybersecurity expert, Charles Blauner. With 30 years of industry experience, Charles, you've had some of the most demanding cybersecurity and CISO roles at Citigroup, JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank. You're currently CISO in residence at venture firm Team 8, a venture advisor at the Cyber Mentor Fund. You're president of the Cyber Risk Management Consultancy, Cyber Aegis. You're, of course, an advisor to us, and of course, I'd like to consider a friend of mine. I've clearly known you for quite a long period of time. So I know how busy you are, and I just want to start by saying thank you for carving a few minutes out of your busy schedule to kind of come and talk to us and the Absolute folks today. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you're most welcome. And I guess the one thing that comes from all that time as a CISO is a gray beard. So I've earned my stripes.
Well, I would say so. You've been responsible for cybersecurity at some of the world's largest organizations and highly regulated organizations. So really at the forefront of innovation for cybersecurity and threat and risk management. And now you're advising a whole new generation of technology companies, innovators, and new leaders in the space. So what challenges do you think that the sort of the new class of cybersecurity leaders have with what I'd call the traditional leaders in the area? What are the commonalities between them?
So, I mean, I think the most basic commonality, and let's break your question up into two parts. Let's think about the CISOs, sort of old and new, as the world has been evolving. I think the commonality is the core principle of what they do. At the core of what they do, it's really understand what are the assets that are valuable to their organization, and they protect those assets. All right, and so that really hasn't changed. I think what's changing from a CISO's perspective, and this will be a tie into the other part of the question, is that the CISO's job used to, first of all, be a compliance job, used to be a technology job. The evolved CISO today is really much more focused, less on compliance, but more on operational resiliency, less on security technologies, more on what the business is trying to accomplish, right? And so part of your question also talked about the sort of technology companies that I'm advising. The common thread there really is for a CISO to have evolved, they have to start talking in a business frame of reference. For a good security technology company to be selling to a CISO today, they also have to be evolving. They also have to be thinking more about the business problem that they're solving, not so much the cool piece of technology they developed in a lab somewhere in California or Israel or Texas or wherever else. So I think that's most probably the most important evolution for both.
So I think we've observed the same. You know, I think that the role of the CISO within the organization, as you said, was really focused on compliance and almost behind the scenes, and today increasingly at the forefront, as so much of the business is connected to that risk. But there's kind of a new thread of conversation around contributing to revenue strategies and customer experience. And so I think for a long time as a community, we've thought customer experience is almost has an opposite reaction to security, that the two have a lot of tension between one another. How do you see that unfolding?
So again, if you think about that evolution of the role of the CISO that I was trying to describe, and part of that was about sort of really centering what you do within the context of the business. All right. And so if you think about the business, and let's say you're a consumer-oriented business, that consumer experience is core. So I think about the world I used to live in banking. if I think about one of the great security innovations that is happening, um, that is very much both a win for the customer experience as well as a win for security, is the beginning death toll to passwords, all right? And biometrics, and being able to use the security built into the native device, whether you are a Samsung phone user or an iPhone user or whatever. The reality is that's all about the application of security technologies. And it's all about a much more secure transaction, which reduces fraud rates. But all the customer cares about is it's also all about a much friendlier, simpler user experience. You don't call a call center anymore and get asked a bunch of stupid questions that you have no way of answering. All right. It's all simplified. If you think about data, all right, there are all sorts of emergent security technologies, specifically in the area of things like homomorphic encryption, that create whole new business opportunities around data that never existed before, and most importantly, do it in a way that's privacy preserving. All right. And so those are just two examples of opportunities that CISO is going to be thinking about, of how the technology that sits in the back of their labs can really change the business.
It can change the business. I think it can also change the user experience. One of the one of the pieces that we've talked a lot about as a company and with yourself is the effect of all of those controls on the user experience, which is getting better, but also the complexity that gets introduced with every one of these new layers we add to that device. And so one of the things that you and I were speaking about at an event a couple of months ago, and I know has become a big part of the increasing conversation, at least for us, is what you referred to at the time as the third question. And so can you just sort of describe the third question a little bit? Because I thought it really had a big impact on us, and I know it had a big impact on a lot of the other folks that were listening in that day.
So sure. So despite what I just said, I've always been a very early adopter of technology. All right. If I go way, way back, I built the first PKI on Wall Street. I built I was like one of the first large users of building my own SOC. And so I've always been a very early adopter of technology. And I've always been very centered on, there's a problem that I've got to solve. All right. There's some security dilemma, some risk, some threat that needs solving for. And so there's this huge amount of attention that we pay. And I was fortunate enough to be at a pretty large company where we were able to actually build a whole lab in Tel Aviv just to do research in this space, to say, what are the emerging technologies, whether they're from small startups or traditional companies that are out there that help solve these problems, right? And so the first question I was always asking is, okay, is this the right product? Is this the right technology to solve the problem, right? My job as a CISO was to sort of understand what the problems were, sort of stack rank them from a priority perspective, and then rely on really good engineers to go and figure out the technical solutions. And so the first question was always, is this the right technical solution? And I was sort of a technical person, so I could always challenge, but that was always the first question. And once I was comfortable and I made the decision to, yes, this is the right solution, I get the money, the team goes off and running, and now they're in implementation, right? And so as with any manager, you have regular project reviews. And so the second question was always like, are you done yet, right? Is it rolled out? And you ask that question over and over again until one day they come back and say, you're done, it's rolled out. And in a sense, at that point, you sort of say, okay, that problem, mission accomplished. And if that was the only problem you were working on, um, your attention would stay focused on it. But the reality is that as a CISO, there are 100 different problems that you're working on.